Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Beyond the Peak podcast. I'm Oliver Wolf, and I'm my co-host,
David Perre.
Yes, sir. And so today we have a very special guest. His name is Joe Cardillo, and I'll read a bio I kind of created because he gave me bullet points, and I was like, you know what? We're going to make this bio real sexy. So, Joe, I hope you like this. I wrote it for you. So, Joe Cardillo is a husband for 29 years and father of 4 children. He started in vector marketing, the subsidiary of Cutco Cutlery Corporation, at the age of 18, and has since grown his responsibilities and opportunities for the last 34 years, achieving general manager for all of Vector Marketing Canada. While succeeding in his role at Vector, he's also gone beyond the peak as a leader of the London Basket Brigade for the last 12 years, which is an offshoot of one of Tony Robbins' causes serving those in need. Now, if serving in this way wasn't enough, Joe also started as a professor in 2019 at Fanshawe College in the business graduate program. Finally, Joe is also a leader of the Roman Roadhouse, a platform bringing talented people to speak about social issues. Now, the way that Joe chooses to humbly summarize himself is that he is an imperfect man, I want to emphasize that, still pursuing being his best version in every way. So, Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the show, Joe.
Well, thanks, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so I want to actually even piggyback a little bit about this bio and just add a little bit because, well, first of all, we've tried to get this podcast going. We even started hitting record, I think, a week or two ago, and then your Wi-Fi, like the whole neighborhood got shut down, and you're like, you know what? It just wasn't the right time, is what I'm thinking. But we did have a chance to, or I had a chance to express some of the personal appreciation that I had for you. And I really wanted to reiterate it because I think it's really important and powerful. And so some of my personal experience, again, I used to actually work with vector marketing and Cutco Cutlery. It was an incredible experience. I still to this day recognize it as a huge part of my personal development and professional development. And during that time, Joe was at the time still general manager of Canada, right? While I was there. And so one of the things that I always appreciated about Joe so much was his ability to always speak from the heart. And it was something that was so impactful that no matter who went on the stage, when Joe came up, everybody would just be quiet and genuinely listen. And I could feel, just like myself, I'm sure others did too, they always felt touched by his message. And one of the most summarizing parts of what he would say every single time was, it's not about the knives, it's about the lives. And if for those of you who don't know, Cutco Cutlery is a knife, I guess, manufacturing and selling company. They do incredible knives. I still own some a decade later, and they're incredible. But like I said, even though it's a knife selling company, Joe would always emphasize and lead by example in saying, again, it's not about the knives, it's about the lives. And so I'm very excited to have you here, kind of added to your bio there. But let's just dive right in. David, I know you have a question you'd like to ask, so I'll let you take it away.
I do, Joe. This is a burning desire question. After reading your bio and hearing a little bit about you, Oliver and I are really into the world of leadership, and we've read a bunch of leadership books. We're studying it. We believe that that's part of the reason why we're here, is to really lead leaders. And being in Cutco for the last 30 years, you've led thousands of people in this organization. And so I would love to know what your summarized leadership lessons and principles would be that you've learned over the last 30 years, the ones that have really stuck with you, the ones that you live by probably daily as you go on and lead these organizations. I'd love to know what lessons really come to mind when I ask that.
Well, thanks, David. And thank you very much, Oliver, for that kind introduction. It was a pleasure working with you and having you part of our team for the time that you spent with us. You know, I think leadership is something that a lot of times people look at and say, hey, in a business, who are the leaders? But everything that we're a part of needs leadership. Our families, our communities, our country, our world, everything needs leadership. And a lot of times comes down to leadership. And I know there's probably fancier ways to describe what I've experienced and what I've seen in action, but I think sometimes the most successful people that I've had the opportunity to learn from, and being in a leadership intensive organization like our sales organization is, I've had the pleasure to work with the founder directly of Vector Marketing, to every president I've had the opportunity to report to at some point, and plus so many other leaders. Some of the things really can boil down to what you learn in kindergarten, of
amazing
treating people nicely. I think one of the things that's been emblazoned in me is expecting good in people, expecting, not expecting the worst, but expecting good, even when some bad things happen. I tend to believe that most people don't want bad things to happen, or there's good in there. So trying to see the good in people and situations, even when the situations might not appear that way. I think, what people like about the leaders that I've had the opportunity to work with is they're not afraid to roll up the sleeves and spend a long night, talking or working or waking up early to get things done. So there's no substitute for hard work, but it's caring. I think there are sometimes leaders maybe think things, but they think maybe as a leader, I shouldn't reach out and say, hey, how are you feeling today? I heard this was going on in your life, but doing it and trying to connect with people personally. As business people, sometimes we say, hey, this is who someone is as a business person or in business, and this is who they are personally. And my job is to lead them in this direction as a business person. But we're all one, we're all connected. And I might be struggling at work, if my kid is one of my children is having a real tough time with something. And so often the leaders that I've been exposed to, they want to know what's going on with my family as much as they want to know what's going on with the organization that we're building together. And so I think, there's so many people I've learned, John Maxwell is such a powerful author of leadership. I think of Matthew Kelly, the people that have helped influence my view, but sometimes it's not the complicated thing. I mean, people need to be led by a vision, and they want to be a part of something and want to be building something together, but they want to know that people care about them, and fostering that not only from a leader to someone that you work with, but fostering that across the board, because I think they've shared, raising a child takes a village. Developing someone in a business, I look at some of the people that I've had the opportunity to work with for so many years. I've played a role, but their peers have played a role with bringing them along and pulling them through some of the tough days, because sometimes that's been more critical than anything I could have said, is one of their peers helping them.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joe, for that answer. I love that I love the route that you took, because with all the experience you have, you could have given us some high-level strategies. You could have given us some management practices. You could have given us a lot of different complex, quote unquote, ways to lead in an attempt to, look good, an attempt to give us specific knowledge or wisdom or whatever it is. But I feel the simplicity of what you shared holds the real wisdom. And I kind of want to sum it up because it was really powerful. The three things that I got from what you said are: one, really just seeing the best in others, choosing to believe that people are good, even if they do something quote unquote wrong, or even if they make mistakes, choosing to see them and believe in them anyway. And then the two others were empathy and compassion. Right? Being willing to empathize with your team, being willing to be compassionate with others. If they're having a hard day, check in with them. And those are such simple truths. And yet I feel like, Joe, in such big organizations, sometimes those simple truths get lost. And so I just want to acknowledge you for honoring the simplicity of those truths and choosing to embody them in a day-to-day world. And it reflects in the way that Oliver told me that you reach out to him every single year for his birthday. It was years ago that he was in Cutco, and yet you still do that. And what a sign of empathy to really go the extra mile to connect with someone. So I just love everything you're sharing here.
Well, thanks, David. And obviously, as business people, or I'm not sure exactly who your audience, personal growth people, people that want a bigger life, are going to listen to this, is the real wealth in life. One is taking care so you're healthy, but is relationships. And whether someone works, with us for 6 months or a year, or 2 years, or 10 years, or 15 years, is one of the things that I find is my greatest wealth is the wonderful relationships that I've been able to develop with people all across the country, all across North America. And so that's valuable to me. So if the least I can do is wish Oliver a happy birthday, that makes me happy.
Yeah. And I'll even piggyback on that, because it's not even just birthdays. I'd say that's arguably kind of easy because you get notifications for people's birthdays. Joel actually goes as far as even recognizing my achievements. If ever I'm posting about something successful, he'll actually even go as far as to message me out personally. Again, not even just in the comments, but like personally message me something. And I really appreciate that. And so this is interesting. It's a good transition for another question that we wanted to ask. And it's one that even I have struggled with a little bit, because a few years ago, I was a general manager as well for paint. I had franchise managers respected and believed what you're saying about seeing the goodness in everybody and in people. Am I losing connection, by the way, or are we good?
A little bit choppy, but
a little bit choppy.
Yeah,
I think we're good now.
I'd repeat the question because I think we lost.
I will for sure. Fortunately, I'm recording, so it might not be lagging on my end. We'll see in the post recording. But anyway, so the question I wanted to ask, and as it relates to me as well, is basically, how do you lead without attachment? And what I mean more specifically is like being in a people-based company, and you see a lot of people come through, and you see a lot of people fall off. And yes, you can see a lot that are like, okay, you're probably not going to do so great. But my real question is, how do you deal with when you see something great, like you truly see something great in someone, and those are the people that completely fall off or completely go off the deep end or just go in the opposite direction you ever expected? For me, that was actually something I had difficulty with and would actually hurt or something of the kind. I would love to hear your experiences. I'm sure you've had many of those situations, what it's been like, how you've managed those emotions, so on and so forth.
Great question. And I think there's a couple of varieties of that happening. I was just sharing, we had a wonderful story in our company. And Oliver, you probably remember Mike McDonald. If you had to deal with Mike, he was our national administrative manager. Maybe not as directly, but Mike was a really important part of our company for over 20 years. And now he's the CEO of Bruce Trail Conservatory. So where you folks are in Ottawa, you might not be as familiar with the Bruce Trail, but it's a 900 plus kilometer trek of hiking and conservation areas that they've gathered from Niagara Falls all the way. I think it's to Tobermory or
yeah, I've been on that trail actually.
Have you? It's beautiful.
It is.
And Mike left our organization a couple of years ago to take over that organization as their CEO. And sometimes we get people that leave us to go do something else. And one of the things I think that's helped me is realizing that we can play a part in someone's journey. And hopefully that was a positive part, that they learned some things, they got some skills. And now I just spoke with Mike the other day, and what they're accomplishing in just a couple of years that he's been there are things this organization has never accomplished in all the years it's been around. Wow. And so it's extremely gratifying to me to know that Mike gathered information, gathered skill sets, and was able to go forward into, I mean, I've walked with Mike McDonald on a hike before, and he's identified the excrement and said, this excrement is this animal. This I just didn't want to step in it. All right. But this is how passionate he was. So for him to go forward. So Oliver, sometimes you get people that you love them, you wish they would stay with you, but they've got a vision of where they want to go with something. And so I've always seen, and so many of us have in Vector, hey, we can be a place where leaders can get a great start, can get that boost, and hopefully go on to other great things. So there's that side of things that we can be excited about for someone's future. And we have many examples of that. There's the other side where you see the potential, and sometimes that's the challenge. You see things in people that they don't see themselves, how good they could actually be, and they fall off and they don't go that extra step. Or, sometimes, that success is right there and they're so close to breaking through, but they fall away before that. That's hard. It's hard. Those ones are extra hard. Yeah. When you see something for someone, but you still try to be there for those people. Some of those people come back, and some of those people I can still have good relationships with, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's sometimes difficult when you lose good people like that. But also in life, I would share with our leaders is just keep recruiting, just keep building. There's other great stories out there, other great people, and we can influence, but we can't control everything. And, I think it'd be wise in my case, in that situation, to say, is there a way we could have handled that individual a little bit different? Is there something we could have done that would have attracted them or helped them through some of their challenges that they felt they just couldn't get over, they couldn't overcome themselves or under our current setup? So ideally, I'd like to learn from it so that, that case wouldn't happen again, but we know it does. So, we keep the relationship alive, but we keep building.
Powerful.
I really like, again, I think the key to this interview so far is simplicity. I think it's staying simple and avoiding complexity. And like you said, it's just that the key takeaway from there is having been a part of the story, I think is really what you're saying is so powerful and what allows someone to feel good about no matter the direction they go, whether they stay or not, all that kind of stuff. Just having been a part of the story and pretty much have done your best in making it a good part of that story, their story. So I really appreciate that. David, I think you had a reflection or question as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way that you said, that there will always be an ending to some things. And I feel like that's such a powerful lesson in that it's like, there's always going to be life and death, and that happens in our life, but that also happens in our organizations. And the more we try to control, the harder it's going to be. And you said we can influence, but we can't control. We can do our part, but ultimately the end outcome is not fully up to us. We may think that it's up to us. We may try to control as much as we can, but really it's not fully up to us. And some people might go a different direction. And I think there's a peace in accepting that. And I feel like, Joe, you probably had to go through a lot of those hard moments to learn to actually be willing to fully accept that as part of a process, and also look back to learn from it and find the lessons and the golden nuggets that you can find in that experience.
Yeah. And I would just add one thing is whether they're leaving to pursue, someone said, hey, did you try to talk Mike McDonald out of getting this opportunity? Said, if you knew Mike McDonald, you wouldn't have ever talked him out of this opportunity. It'd be, I'm a sports fan. It's like if someone said to me, hey, Joe, we want you to be the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, or some president of a sports organization, there was no way I was going to talk him out of it. And that's on the positive front when they're moving on to something. I mean, we're going to share what we feel we have to offer, but we're going to be cheerleaders for them in their next venture. But even if someone's leaving in a way that's disappointing, is we don't want them to leave feeling like they were a failure. We want to have them leave and still understand, hey, we'd love to have you stay. I'm human. It's not awesome that you're leaving, but you're still cool. I'm still cool. Let's be friends. And I'm not going to pound you because you're leaving and, say this or that to you. I'm going to wish you the best and know that, hey, if you ever have questions down the road, I'm here and I'd like to support you. So I think how we leave people is an important part of the process too.
I love that. You mentioning Mike McDonald being, one of the top performers and then leaving brought up some curiosity because you've been a part of Cutco now for over 30 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that many people have come and gone since that. I'm sure you're one of the longest committed individuals within the organization. Is that right?
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? I'm going to interrupt your question because that's sometimes what people say. How do you, like, we have some people, I mean, our business and direct sales is giving people a shot. All right. We're the place people can start without experience, because the common frustration, I don't have experience. How do I get a job? They want experience. Well, we're the place where we give people a shot without experience to get some experience. So people say, well, we have some people that get started on a Saturday and they quit by Monday. Okay. Yeah. That happens.
Oh yeah. I remember those.
Yeah, that happens. We have people work a summer. That being said, the executive team that I'm a part of with Vector at 34 years, I'm in the middle range of the individuals. The presidents have both been around for over 40 years. I deal with the owner that's been around now over probably close to 50 years, that's took over along the way. My peers, are 30 years, 38 years, 34 years. Wow. That the team I get to work with in Canada, our national sales manager started in 1994. So she's now at over 27 years. Our national recruiting manager, she started in 1996. So this was her 25th year. We have multiple people with decades. I work with Jim Khalil that started in 1990. He was already a part of Vector. He's been over 35 years. So there are those that leave for the weekend and that's all they do. But we have top sales reps since 1993, since 1994 that have 25. They've given their whole career to this. So where we have the one extreme, we've also helped create a culture where we have something that is really difficult to find anywhere, the longevity of people in our company. So I tend to focus on that.
Yeah, great. I'd love for you to expand on that a little bit, because in the world of entrepreneurship, it's so easy to find something else. It's so easy to or get another offer or shift directions. I mean, as an entrepreneur, like pivot is like one of the words that we know most, to be pivoting into another place. And over the last 5 years of entrepreneurship, I know I've pivoted like 4 or 5 times. Yeah. And I'm curious, Joe, for someone like you, or even the culture of those you're around, for people who have stayed the course for 25, 30, 35 years, I'm curious as to what is it that has got you to keep the blinders on, to not go those other directions that have probably come up? How did you stay the course for so long?
It's a great question. And I think one of the things that most people in our company would tell you that is an anchor for so many of us is the people that are part of this company. And it's not just people, it's people that, like, our national sales manager's done 2 Ironmans. I mean, she's unbelievable, Angie McDougall. And I only bring that up
Angie's
because
awesome. She's
that
great
just
energy.
gives you an example of the depth of her desire for growth. So it's filled with people that are living life in the front row, looking to pursue growth. And so it's an electric environment of people that want to be better. So that's one thing. The other thing is that we promote from within. So you get one level figured out. Okay, you're doing a really good job. We're going to take it up a notch and you're going to go here. All right. You get this figured out. We're going to have you run your own office for the summer as a branch manager. You figure that out a little bit. We're going to have you become a district manager and you'll run a year-round office. And then there's layers of that where now you have assistants within your office and you're learning how to lead people in your own organization. And then you're developing people to run other offices while you're a district. Then you kind of take a while to get that figured out. Okay, we're going to promote you to division manager. So now you're in charge of your own office, but now districts and now other people there. So then there's a learning curve there. So there's opportunity. So it's not Groundhog Day, that it's continually changing. And then you get to another level, national sales, and obviously, only one person or a couple there, but there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to grow within the company so that it's not doing the same thing. And then one thing that our company's allowed us to do in Canada is I was on the Home Shopping Network. I think that's the name of it. We're a direct sales company. I cut my finger. I was bleeding on live TV. All right. So we got to do a new venture there. We have an arrangement with Costco. We're the only direct sales company probably in the world that has a channel with Costco roadshows. New venture we started that's bringing in millions of dollars of sales. So we have our and our direct sales company that's been this similar since 1977, but Cutco's been around since 1949. You talk about pivot. We are in home doing demos with customers. Well, as of March 2020, it's all online, and our recruiting's online, and our training's online.
I should have thought of that.
It's like we just started a brand new business online with what we're doing. So it's continually looking for opportunities to keep it fresh. Because I think that's what you're saying, David. How do you not get stale? How does it still, because there's an energy when you pivot to a new entrepreneurial opportunity, right? That newness.
Totally.
So we've created ideally a culture for people that if you excel, we're gonna keep that spirit alive by putting you in a new role. I think John Maxwell talks about developmental 1, 2, 3, 4. You get to the highest level, we're going to create a new position that you come back to D1 so that you can be that rookie kind of figuring it out. And you get that figured out, boom, we're going to bring you back down to D1 with a new opportunity. So that's some of it. And, I talk about the people, some of my best friends have been developed. Like I've grown up, like I have a brother, I have a sister. I've worked with people for 34 years, lots of people. 34 years, 25, it created a family environment where, we go to weddings, we celebrate. One of the individuals in our company just had a baby this morning. The company's celebrating this, and this is a pretty large company, but we're celebrating an individual's baby because she's an important part of our company. So, when the owner calls me on a regular basis, it's like, Joe, how's your family dealing with COVID? That's usually always the first question. Is everybody healthy? So when you're dealing with people like that, I want to find that stuff out before, what's going on with sales. It helps you stay. I got to tell you guys, I did my executive MBA at Ivy, Western Ontario, in 1991 and 92. And it was in the Toronto area. So a lot of executives there. I was the only direct sales guy. Okay. There are doctors, there's engineers. There's a lot of smart people in my class. Okay. It was a 2-year program. What people say, well, what's the biggest thing you got from that 2 years? It was a Friday, every other Saturday or Sunday, Monday, every other week, couple of years. We had these week-long sessions. They prepare you, at least they did this 20 some years ago. They prepare you to leave your company, near the end. There's like an HR part. And anger and frustration was either number 1 or number 2 with almost everybody in there. And fundamentally, I got to tell you what was going to happen. Frustrated person, executive at company A was going to go probably move to company B. And one of my other classmates who works for company B, frustrated and angry, was going to move to company A.
Yeah.
And I looked at this and I'm like, wow, we recognize people. We say thank you. We appreciate people. We give people opportunity. I said, I got the road less traveled. And they think, oh, I'm the funny guy, direct sales, selling knives. I'm like, you guys go fight traffic at 6 a.m. to work till 9 o'clock and hardly see your family and go do all this. I'll keep doing my thing. All right. I'll keep doing my thing. And the biggest thing I had from that experience, and it was a great education, but it was an appreciation for sometimes the road less traveled, being an entrepreneur, doing something a little different, it can be extra special.
Yeah, that was awesome. There's definitely a lot of different things in there, and it's almost hard to summarize them all. But I think some of the really key stuff that I loved, because again, I feel like a lot of people have heard of these things or thought of these things before, and you having been in it for so long, you're a direct witness of it. One of those main things you said is like an electric environment of people who want to keep growing or something along those lines. And that superimposed into so many different things, like that environment of people want to keep growing. I found that, people that are on self-development or personal growth or all that kind of stuff, they come to that same realization of what you said earlier in the podcast, that relationships is one of the most important things, right? Getting to know people, empathy, compassion, all these things, like there's such things that most people conclude. And to see that this organization has figured that out so long ago, and has created that atmosphere where, like you said, there's a baby that, and to give some context to our audience, like, are you able to like generally let us know, like, how large is Vector? Like, do we have a way to like kind of measure that?
The Cutco business is a $250 million business in a year, 250 million plus. Last year was our greatest year in the history since 1949. And
even in COVID,
we probably did more than that. We probably did closer to 300. I don't know all the numbers sometimes.
Yeah, totally. But just to give some basic context, because again, it's like, someone might be like, oh, that's easy for you to say. You probably have like a tight knit team. It's like, this is a $300 million a year company, and they're still talking about relationships, getting to know each other personally as individuals, talking about each other's births and all these other birthdays and all these things. I mean, that's magic. That's truly impressive. And it comes, and this is what I think is also important to conclude, is like, in as large a company as that, the only way that's possible is that if everyone in the organization is that way. Right, because it's the culmination of every single person that allows for that to be possible. So that's freaking amazing, and it actually does kind of lead into my next question, which is basically, Vector has helped a lot of people reach their potential, or at least get them on the path to like beeline their potential. You've got some people like Justin Donald, John Berghoff, Hal Elrod, John Vroman, and this is a very short list of a large list of people that to this day are some of the biggest influencers in the world, who still will say Vector was one of my greatest experiences. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I'd love to ask you, you've already somewhat answered this, but specifically to this, like, why is that? Why is it that Vector has helped these incredible influencers propel into their potential? And is there anything that we can take away from that right now?
I don't know if you mentioned John Rulin. He's another one of our
John Rulin, Giftology, right?
Giftology, esteemed alumni.
Also amazing. Got to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck with that. A lot of esteemed alumni. I think it's hard to quantify. I know Don Frieda had a vision at the beginning of Vector is where personal growth was really going to be an adamant part. People working to bring out their best. We've always invested. I mean, we've just zigged when other companies zag. Like in 2007 and 2008, or 2008, the economic crisis. Companies were downsizing, not running company events. You know what we did? We rented out AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. We had a conference there. We go, hey, everybody, we're going to have dinner on the field. So half the field was our dinner, and the other half, we played a pickup game of football.
That's awesome.
and at that moment, that stadium was like probably within a year old. We just, when most would say, hey, times are tough, hold back, let's save, we reinvest. We reinvest when you would think, okay, hey, there's reason to not. And we go deeper investing in people. And part of it, I just, as our owners, they just have no desire as a private company to be on the cover of Forbes magazine or Fortune or whatever magazine there is today. I don't know if there are those magazines anymore. It is they want to be the biggest provider of help for Olean, New York, this little small town in upstate New York where Cutco is made, and they want to be a key contributor to that community, and they want to allow other Vector people throughout North America to be contributors to their community. So I think that giving from the top, I think, like brings like, and when you got a dynamic environment of people growing, you attract others. And and it brings out the best. And what's so great isn't, all these people you mentioned, John Berghoff, how they're the first people to want to give back to our organization. Hey, we'll give you this. We just had Jesse Eitzer. Is that his name? Some of you familiar? He wrote this book about living with a Navy SEAL for a month, and check him out. He's a pretty crazy guy. But John Ruhlin's like, hey, I've been on the speaking gig. This guy you got to get. And we just paid a bunch of dollars to have him speak at our Zoom national event a couple of weeks ago. But they want our company to succeed. And so it's just a continual cycle of getting people together. I mean, we're in a virtual world right now, but I'll tell you, we had to pivot. We were supposed to have a trip. The trip got canceled. So what does our company do? Say, okay, we're going to have a super trip to Australia, New Zealand. All right, we're going to do something we've never done. And if you're familiar with Australia and New Zealand right now, that's been postponed for us. So they just announced a couple of weeks ago, okay, well, instead, we're taking everybody to Maui. All right. And we're going to make a level so low that every manager can go. Yes. And so because spending thousands and thousands of dollars to get people together, there is still a power.
More than pays off.
Yeah. If our company had to be all virtual going forward, I mean, let's use in the last 2 summers, we took people whitewater rafting out in Western Canada, outdoors, kept it social distancing where we can, because sitting by a campfire or going in the water, with someone. We rented boats in Lake Regina. We did zip lining in Hamilton. We still have events. I mean, we used to have people, whitewater raft up by where you folks are. I must have gone 25 times up to wilderness tours there, because we like experiences too. Angie, our national sales manager, was just down in Vegas for President's Banquet, where there is no budget for this event. It's a contest for a campaign of ours. And there's caviar, there's Dom Perignon. There is no budget in Vegas, and it's just an appreciation for people. It's when they get off the plane in Vegas, there's a sign that's got their name and a limo waiting for them, and they go to the Encore. They golf there, where you can only golf. It's like $500 a round. It used to be when I went. If you're staying at the hotel, you have like a PGA guy who's your caddy. Is pretty nutso, but she just took, on top of that, our division managers were there. She just took them on a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon, so it's let's do experiences. Let's do things together and create memories and bring people out of their comfort zone. So I'm just kind of talking all kinds of stuff here with you, but I think there is, and let me tell you something else. We're not perfect as a company. That's clear. We got things to work on. We want to work on things getting better every year. There's no question. There's things that we want to continue to get better. I mean, Vector isn't for everybody. Nothing's for everybody. But we're going to continually work to get better too. While we feel we got a lot of good stuff going on, we just want to get better. And I think that helps fuel people when you look for those extra challenges. Okay, hey, we've done good things, but how can we become even better? How can we make these next 5 years better than these last 5 years, and not just increasing sales, like better programs, better serve clients, better serve sales reps, and create opportunity.
You're muted.
I am muted and talking. Joe, thanks for sharing all that. I think so much of what I'm getting from this podcast and just listening to you is the value of investing in your people. Whether that be just checking in on how you're doing, whether that be asking you about how your family is doing in COVID, whether that be renting at a stadium when no one is even thinking about doing that, whether that is finding different countries to fly your people out to because certain places are closed, and the value of getting people together. And it just shows me that there's so much value in the intangibles that can't be measured. Yet, if you look at the years of doing this over and over again, the measuring is clear. The results are clear. The value of those things are clear because people like you are willing to stay the course for so long, are willing to give back to so many people in the organization, are willing to just give your all to this mission. And it's clear in the people that Cutco develops. And I really just think that, more than anything, I'm going to walk away from really considering the value in my interactions with my teams, interactions with my people, the people that I connect with, because you never know how valuable those relationships are. And it's really amazing how much value you guys and your team and your organization put on these relationships, because it really makes a difference, as clearly demonstrated in how well you guys have done. Yeah. Ollie, I know you have another reflection and a question that's burning up inside of you.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reflection is actually really simple. It's just what I mentioned so much earlier in the podcast, which was, it's these kinds of stories that validate what you say about, it's not about the knives, it's about the lives, right? It's not about the knives, it's about the lives. Like you have, again, you kept mentioning experiences, relationships, connecting, being in person, all these things. None of that had anything to do with knives. None of that had anything to do with increasing sales numbers and this and that and all the other. And so I just it's so cool, again, to come back to the context of a $300 million organization, and every word coming out of your mouth is relationships, connections, and all that stuff, and the importance of it. So I just had to reflect how cool it is it's just that simple.
Can I tell you guys something real cool we do?
Please.
Yeah.
Is Sherry Dickey. She's our national recruiting manager, but serves as another role of helping people with their dreams. And so for our district manager program, what we do is have them create their dreams. And Matthew Kelly has a great book on dream managers and creating and crafting dreams. And we run events multiple times a year and help people craft hundreds of dreams. And then as a company, for our district managers, we put aside in a withholding account for them $250 every month, so that they make a list of their dreams, and some are, I want to buy a Peloton. So one of our managers bought a Peloton. One wanted to go to Sparkling Hill with his wife, which is a beautiful resort in Vernon, BC, right by Predator Ridge, and did a weekend there, which is a really beautiful spa resort. Multiple different things. People, I think one guy bought a treadmill. One is saving for a travel trip. So we get people thinking about dreams, and then if they win a contest, they'll go, hey, maybe I can put those dollars towards my dream dollars. Yeah. Or they work towards that. And some of their dreams are really big, and they'll use our money that we've put aside for them, plus their own money. We've created an association with a company too that's got all, like, go to the Super Bowl, go to the Oscars, all these different things that expands people thinking. And so we help people sell knives, but we help people achieve their dreams.
Yes.
So if we help people achieve their dreams, they're probably going to sell a bunch of knives. Okay. Nope. But we're going to help people achieve their dreams. And one of our top division managers in the United States, he just wrote his own book last month or earlier this month on helping people achieve their dreams. So that's a real big focus on ours. And I'll tell you one other thing, folks. I'll tell you, someone at some point is going to write a book about this in Vector. But out of all the executives in our organization, key executives, our divorce rate has got to be less than 5%, maybe even 2 or 3%. And I'll share with you what's been passed down and what gets passed down from generation, because we actually have like generation to generation in our company. So we have hierarchy of positions, but it's kind of generational to a certain degree. One of the presidents shared with me is, hey, have the date night, you and your wife, once a week, sometimes it's twice a month, go out, just the two of you, no kids. It was a tip. They're like, hey, whenever you tell your, spouse, we have women managers, men managers, your spouse, you're going to be home at 5:30 or 5, add an extra 25 minutes. Okay. Or whatever. So if you say you're going to be home at you're thinking on, because salespeople, they're always optimistic, right? They're always like, oh yeah, I can make that happen. Right. Then a phone call or someone wants to talk to them. So if they say, oh, I think I can be home by 5:30, say 6. And this is just the simplicity. If you're home, if you say 5:30 and you're at 5:35, you're late.
Yep.
You say 6, You show up at 5:50, you're early.
Oh yeah.
And it makes all the difference in the world. So just little tips of different, getting a mother's helper to help with younger children where you can, or we bring our spouses, to those trips. We can bring families to the trips, that we know that if someone's right completely, they're much better to be right for other people to help lead them if they're happy with their life. Because it's tough to be really great at what you're doing if you're struggling with your relationship with your spouse and you're struggling with your relationship with your children. We help support some of our managers to get outside coaching because, some of that they deal with their personal relationships, with their because that's all it's not separate. It's all a part of who they are.
Joe, it's almost like you have a sixth sense and you sense the next question we're going to ask you because you keep transitioning perfectly for us into the next place of the conversation. So I appreciate your sixth sense.
I'm getting lucky, I guess.
So family, here at Beyond the Peak, we believe that, success is not just about the externalized success that you have, but really all around internalized fulfillment. And in that is all areas of your life. It is your family. It is your health. It is your fun, it is your business, it is all of it. And so Joe, for having achieved as much as you have, for having been as committed to this path as long as you have, I'd love it if you could share some tips on how you also create this harmony between your business, your career, and your family, because I know you have 4 kids. I know you have a successful marriage, and I know you're focusing on aligning these areas of your life all the time. And so how do you do it? And what would you recommend to someone that is, on that route of success and they're recognizing that there are disbalances in their life?
That's a lot there. I think, what's been passed on to me and, is 2 biggest decisions you make in life. And I think they're 2 really big ones is who your significant other is going to be. And, what path, your career, what you're going to pursue and how you're going to pursue that. Getting the significant other right is a big one. And, so often, I was married, my wife and I, we were married. She was 22, I was 23. It's like, that's a lot on the shoulders of a younger person, whether it's in their 20s or 30s, wherever, 40s, someone decides to get married. But getting that right is important. And my father-in-law and mother-in-law, they've been married, they're approaching 60 years being married. And I'll never forget, I was at a Vector event in Washington, D.C., and a barber was cutting my hair. And actually, before COVID, I used to get this done. It's a little tougher than you think. And this barber had a 6-year-old child and a 3-year-old, and he had just finished 7 years of marriage. And he's like, just heard from my friends, we got through 7th year. That's the hardest year of marriage. It's going to get a lot easier from here on in. And at this point, I had teenagers, one in college. I'm like, I don't know who told you that, but you got some bad advice, brother. All right? And so I said that to my in-laws. I said, hey, this is what the story was. And he said, that's 7th year is the toughest year of marriage. And I said that, and without hesitation, my father-in-law, I said, what's the toughest year of marriage? The one you're in. And at first, my mother-in-law was a little bit taken aback, they're high 70s at the time or whatever.
Yep.
But he's like, because you never take it for granted. You're always putting the effort in and you're putting the work in. And I think one of the things that Vectors helped create is when we create a schedule, there are certain rocks to our schedule of, hey, these are some annual conferences, annual trip, things that have to go in. But so often we've changed an event because of someone's anniversary or someone's birthday or personally, as I created my schedule, we would do it together and say, okay, hey, what's going on with the family? Let's put those things in our schedule. So sometimes we'd have to put the big rocks in for Vector. Yep. Sometimes we put the big family rocks. We have a family wedding or obviously our Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. Those are rocks. But we'd work together to create that schedule. I traveled a lot at times, but I got to tell you, nobody saw more of their kids play sports as a parent than I did, whether it's because I was coaching, because I could schedule all that. So especially as our boys played football in the games in Michigan, we play Friday night under the lights. But in Ontario, you play at 1:30 on a Thursday or 1:30 on a Friday. Most of the parents can't go. I'm there. Did I miss some? Sure. But it's scheduling, it's understanding the priorities, having a significant other that's a superstar, is really critical. I know that was a big part of your question. I mean, with children, I got to tell you, I try to get them to as many Vector events as I can. I love my children being around other Vector people to be inspired, and they've developed relationships. Taking them to Costa Rica, my wife and I were free, but it still costs us $10,000 to go on that. But for my children to be around Vector people that are motivated, making things happen and developing those relationships, plus it was a great time for our family, I'm all in on that. So getting them around other people. And I'm not going to tell you it's easy, any of it, but it's worth it. I think when I grew up, people would say, oh, workaholic. And there used to be a respect amongst workaholics. The older I got, the more I said, that's lame. Workaholic is the easy way. I got people at work that need to listen to me. I could spend all day at work. My kids, they didn't have to listen to me, ideally, but it's much tougher being a parent and working through that than figuring out business challenges. So those that just said, oh, I'm fully engaged in my business, my wife or my husband can handle the kid, that's lame. All right. And I think to what you said, David, we've always painted the picture, and what we've tried our best to develop is that success is family, business, contribution to community, health, experiences, dreams achieving, extended family, being a part of that, being a great uncle, being a great brother, all of those things. I mean, because it's just the truth is once you have a certain amount of money, you have a certain amount of money, it's relationships and all those things. So are really important. And what it takes is capacity. And I tell people in our business, one of the greatest things that you're going to gain is a capacity, because to be successful in all those quadrants of life or those multiple categories, it takes a capacity. And where normal people get tired or no, I find it a little crazy. People, oh, I'm so busy. These people that tell me they're so busy, I wonder how much hours of TV they waste a week. And not that there isn't a place for TV or Netflix or other, there's a place for relaxation and all that. But for these people, I'm so busy, I can't do that. Man, there's a lot of hours in a day, a lot of hours in a week. And if people build capacity, they can have it all. They can have it all.
Joe, you reminded me of something one of my mentors shared with me, and I was asking him about his schedule because he, at the time he had like 4 flights planned. He had a baby coming on the way. He had his anniversary with his wife. And, I asked him, I was like, how are you doing this? And he said exactly the same thing. He said capacity. He said, I've stretched myself enough that I can hold all of this because I choose to. I chose to take responsibility for this life experience. And to bring it back to what you said about being a workaholic and how that's really a cop-out, how that's us choosing that we're not willing to stretch ourselves to gain the capacity to expand, to hold all of the things that we really want to hold in our life. And yeah, I'm not here to live a cowardly life. And so I love that you reflected that.
I think Angie or someone in our business uses the phrase, if your plate's full, get a bigger plate. How do you learn to get a bigger plate? You build your capacity to get that bigger plate. And that's where the oxygen mask on yourself to be in good health, because it's energy, right? You guys learn about everyone. It's people want to do good things, but they're tired. They're this. You put that oxygen mask on yourself and getting, good shape, eat well, those things as best you can, then you have more energy to be able to do all the things. But that's the thing Vector would say is your plate's full. Well, you got to learn how to get a bigger plate. All right. That's what you got to develop.
This is great. I definitely, I was like, is he going to go into this? Cause like, I got to ask this, if not, how, right? How do you grow that bigger plate? How do you grow your capacity? What are some practical ways that our listeners, if they're listening, they're like, oh my God, this is the key, but like, how can they go and do it? What's something actionable they can do today or this week that can move them towards growing their capacity?
Study successful people. You know, David, you said about the mentor that talked about is that's what our business has done, is shared the wisdom along the way. So learn what successful people are doing. I come from a family where my folks divorced when I was like 8 or 9, I don't know, somewhere around there. You know, I spent time with my buddies that had parents together and good relationships and tried to learn, you know, because I said, I don't want to have a family that divorces when I'm older. So I wanted to learn from that. If you find those people, what you'll find is not 99% of the time, I think you'll find 100% of the time, the people that got it all going on, you ask them, they'll share. Not 100% of the time, I think you'll find that. And so what do? You know, they get up a little bit earlier. They go to bed a little bit earlier, maybe. They do their workout in the morning before things going on, you know. So there's strategies, there's successful people all around. So when you get exposed to them or search them out, you know, find them and ask them their tips. And this person's tip plus this person's tip, I think all helps. Is a great way. This book that I'm reading by Jesse Eitzer's, this guy living with the Marine or a Navy SEAL for a month, you know, it's this crazy workout strategy for 30 days. And he's like, when your body's physically exhausted, I think the quote was, that's at 40, you're at 40% capacity.
Yeah.
You know, this is the guy who ran like 100 miles continually, you know, just silly stuff. But, you know, we're capable of much more than we give ourselves credit for. Amazing. But you got to do it the right way, right? You know, it's not about getting sick. It's not about, I don't think, sleeping 3 hours a night. It's not that. It's you know, get yourself in a good spot so you can help others.
Amazing. So I think I've got the answer to this, but I just want to see if someone again reached out to you and they said, hey, Joe, can you give me that one tip? Like you said, go find a mentor and ask them something. So someone came to ask you, what would be that one tip? And it sounds like, would it be sort of like energy management almost?
I think that, but I think it comes down to your schedule. I think Matthew Kelly says your schedule is your priorities. You know, people can say, these are my priorities. I'll understand your priorities if I look back at your schedule for the last. I think some people think planning every hour of your day is like anal retentive. Okay. I'm not an anal retentive person. I'm not this compulsive person, but I love planning out. There's enough time. Okay. I mean, you guys are energetic. You want big things for your life. There are people that run $1 billion. I mean, look at Elon Musk for whatever the guy's like, isn't he CEO of 4 different companies? Doesn't that like blow your mind?
Yep.
Like I'm running
some capacity,
$15 million company here. You know, this guy's got 4, you know, and Tesla's just one of the things that he does. I read an article today that he might be the world's first trillionaire at some point. I mean, that's a guy you'd say, well, what's the capacity? And obviously that's developing other people, right? You know, if you're going to run a business, are you going to invest in people so that you can allow them to do things? And you have to be okay with maybe they won't get the same results that you for some areas. But if they allow you to go home for dinner and invest in your family and keep that going forward, they'll get stronger and you'll have a better business that's sustainable over time. So I'll tell you, schedule work, you know, the things that don't, you know, you guys know, you're going to learn this. My wife and I sit down for goals for the year, and it's people to spend time with. And when you're younger, you might say, that sounds silly, you know, but life gets busy. And I'll tell you, oh yeah, we got to get together. If you just say we got to get together and you don't put it in the calendar, you're not going to see that person. All right. So the use of a calendar and organizing and planning, again, I'm not this like overly planning, but I would say there's enough time. All right. There's enough time and get really good at planning, you know, the schedule, when hockey games are, when this is, when you're going to work out, when you're going to have time for your spouse, you know, there's time.
Love it. Well, Joe, we're coming to the end of the podcast here, but thank you so much. This podcast was filled with so many lessons, from learning compassion, from really how to take your leadership to the next level, to, you know, how to effectively support people. at a scale, at a mass scale, but also in a really intimate scale, to relationship lessons, to time management lessons. There was so much here. And so I appreciate all the lessons you brought and all the simplicity you brought, right? Because these weren't some big, crazy philosophies that are hard to grasp. These were simple things that we can bring into our day-to-day life. And I feel like the simplest things are always the most actionable. So thank you for bringing all of this down to a practical and simple way that we can actually go out and take these lessons and incorporate them into our teams, into ourselves, into our own lives, into the people that are closest to us. And the last question I have for you, Joe, is really, do you have any other final words, final things that you want to share with the audience? And then I guess this would be kind of two questions, and then if someone's listening and you're hearing about the organization of Vector and they're hearing about you and they're saying, I actually want to try this out. I want to get into this work as well. How can they find out more? Where do they go? And so final words, and then where could they go to learn more about you and everything you're up to and this world of Vector?
Maybe my final words might be just highlighting you two gentlemen. I associate with people my age and older too, and different things that I do. And, someone, a small business person just the other day said, I'm done hiring younger people. They don't have the work ethic. They don't do this. And I think through all of history of man and womankind, of humankind, the one generation has always had some things to say about the younger generation, I always have. But in my business, getting a chance to be exposed to younger people that are driven and goal setting is a part of their life and want to make a contribution. I see the best in young people, and I know you guys aren't 18 or 19, but I call you young guys, doing something like this, wanting a bigger life, wanting to make a bigger impact. That's something that should be applauded. And again, sometimes your generation is these texters, these guys, whatever. And there's a lot of greatness in this young generation that's going to make our world a better place. So I'd encourage, well deserved. And I just, Matthew Kelly talks about certain things about, when you're young, I'm too young to do stuff. And then people get to a place, I can't right now, I got kids, it's kind of busy time for me. I'll do it later. And then they get to a point where now, life's too busy and now I'm too old. There's always a reason for whether it's working out or personal development, to have excuses. And ultimately, like most things, whether it's getting in shape, whether it's losing weight, whether it's personal development, it's a decision that someone makes. Lady I used to work with, Rancha, would say, 10 pages a day. If you could just read 10 pages a day, and we used to say readers are leaders. And I used to say gamers are lamers. And I know some cool people game too, but
I'm guilty.
Yeah, but there's a place for it. But readers are leaders. 10 pages a day. Can you do 10 pages a day? Well, if you can do 10 pages a day, that's 300 pages in a month. You could read 12 books in a year. Easy to do, Jim Rohn would say, easy not to do. Just some of those little things. So, I shared with my class, I was teaching the other day about our project, and I said, how do you eat an elephant? And that's pretty wide, one bite at a time, right? So some people can get so overwhelmed with things. But one of my first Vector managers, Marty Dimitrovich, one of the greatest human beings I've ever had walk this planet, told me, yard by yard, things are hard, but inch by inch, they can be a cinch. Yeah. And when you can break things down to little pieces, I can do that. I can read 10 pages a day. Can you read 12 books this year? Oh, no, I've never read 12 books in a year. Can you read 10 pages today or listen to 10 minutes of a podcast, or can you do this or that? Yeah, I can. So break things down to the smaller things. And I said, find successful people. I'm actually losing what question you had for me, David, but is find successful people, ask them questions. To me, the type of people that attract success are the ones that are the most willing to be able to share their insights with others if they're asked. So search them out. There's a lot of great people out there. And I applaud you too. I wish you nothing but great things. Our company's growing and building. Our website's vectormarketing.ca. People can learn more about it. They're the greatest knives in the world. Cutco, they're sharp. They're forever guaranteed. And like Oliver, you said we really try to create a company where it's not about the knives, even though they're great. We're not apologizing for the knives, but we try to influence lives where we can.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate you being here. Really appreciate you sharing so authentically and openly, and wishing you all the best.
And for someone who forgot about the questions, you answered both of them perfectly.
Perfectly, yeah.
Got lucky there. Well, hey, have a great time in Costa Rica. Can't wait to hear some of the stories from there. And David, it's a pleasure to get a chance to meet you and do this with you. And I'm a big fan of you guys. So keep up the great work.
Thanks
so much, Joe.
All right, thanks.